getting some attention on The View when she confronted former Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld, asking him if he wants to apologize for the war in Iraq. Not once, but twice. Watch.
When you think of the number of servicemen who have died, servicemen and women, over 4,400 of them, and you are giving them money, but do you ever feel you should apologize to the families of those people?
Well, I make a practice of meeting with the families of those that have died as well as those that have been wounded and talk to them. And you go in wondering what can you say to them that would help them understand the appreciation the country has and the sacrifice they've made. And I always come out inspired because every one of those people was, each loss of life is a tragedy. It's just a heartbreaking thing.
So do you want to apologize in general now?
I think the implication of that would be unfortunate because it would suggest that they died in vain, and they didn't. The world is a better place today as a result of what took place.
A lot of people might disagree.
A lot of people disagree with that.
There's no question there are people who disagree, and what a wonderful country that they can disagree.
Well, Alan Colmes is host of the Alan Colmes Show. Alan, I take it you agree with Joy?
Apologizing from Donald Rumsfeld, that's where it should begin. The buck stops, of course, with the President of the United States. George W. Bush should apologize. Dick Cheney should apologize. Condoleezza Rice has said there's going to be a mushroom cloud, should apologize. All these people should apologize. Colin Powell should apologize. He had the good sense to leave that administration. This foreign policy disaster of the Bush administration is partly responsible, largely responsible, for the economic mess the country's been in. Every one of those people owe the American people an apology. That's not to renounce or denounce the troops who are doing their job. And you've got to separate that, but they really owe the American public an apology for going to war under false pretense.
He seemed to focus in on the effect that would have on the military, and to suggest that they had died in vain. And the question is, if you're in a position like he's in, which now is sort of an impossible position, but if you're in his position and you offer an apology, those who hate your guts, like, you're not going to be appeased by it. But let me just finish the premise. But you are not going to be appeased by a Rumsfeld apology in Iraq. And those who believe they did fight and their family member did die for something worthwhile in Iraq could be upset by an apology.
That's a nice defense of Donald Rumsfeld's position. However, he could very easily say, with all due respect to the troops, like Robert McNamara came forth finally years later after the Vietnam War and realized what a disaster that was. Too bad he had to wait 30 years to do it. That doesn't take away the disaster of the Vietnam War. You would not remove the disaster and the suffering of the troops and their families. Thousands of people have died for going to war based on faulty intelligence. I had Donald Rumsfeld on my radio show on Wednesday, and I said, hey, you said we know where the weapons are. They're in Tikrit, the north of Iraq. Right. Why would you say that? He said, well, that was the CIA. That was the intelligence. It was always somebody else's fault. I said
well,
to him,
it was faulty intelligence. As a Secretary of Defense, he was responsible for executing the war, not for the intel.
Where's responsibility? Apparently, Rumsfeld's done nothing wrong. It's always somebody else's fault. I asked him, I asked Rumsfeld, you said we'd be out of Iraq, and I played the tapes of these things. I'm saying these things. We'd be out in 6 weeks. I doubt even 6 months. And he said, well, I was just talking about major combat operations. Well, that lasted longer than 6 months. These people did not tell us the truth in the run-up to the war in Iraq. You just
See, now that's what you just hit on it. You just hit on it. If you believe, as you do, as you know, I think some others on that show we just watched do, that they were lying to the American people. President Bush, Colin Powell, Donald Rumsfeld were lying, consciously lying to the American people.
That's not what I said. I said they didn't tell us the truth. Either they didn't tell us the truth because they didn't know the truth,
but this is what this is the distinction I'm trying to draw.
This
is the distinction I'm trying to draw, because there are many on the left in particular who believe that they consciously lied to get us into Iraq, either for oil or for other reasons. If you believe that, then I can see why you would demand an apology. But if you believe that there were good faith mistakes made, do they still owe an apology?
I want to be clear about my position. I don't know whether they consciously lied because I don't know what they knew. So I can't assert with certainty that they consciously lied. But someone's got to say, as Harry Truman did, the buck stops here. And Bush, Rumsfeld, Cheney, Rice, all those people who supported this war need to say, we take responsibility for this. Here's where the buck stops. We made this decision. We made it on false information, and we have to.
Well, haven't they done that? But they haven't gone the extra step of saying, "And I'm sorry." And that's where he said,
"He
said that would send an unfortunate message."
Well, they should be sorry based on everything that was just said. We just had Curveball. One of the key intelligence people. We base a lot of our intelligence about WMDs on this guy Curveball, who just admitted last week, I lied about this because I wanted to get Saddam Hussein out of power.
So Curveball is an apology, but does Donald Rumsfeld, do the people who say they relied in good faith and believed the
men and women into harm's way where they lost life and limb and families got destroyed, or to apologize to the American people for doing that.
But you mentioned McNamara. That he came out and apologized, I think it was 28 years after Vietnam.
It was too late, but he still did it.
But there is a question about whether now, even if you believe an apology is owed, whether now is the time. And we still have men and women on the ground
wait a
in
minute.
Iraq.
I was just told by Donald Rumsfeld that he was right, that combat operations ended within 6 months. So what's the problem if that's the case?
But we are still so close in time to it. And Iraq is still a political issue. It still is very much a political issue.
I thought mission was accomplished.
Yeah, but you're not speaking to my point.
Which is what?
Iraq is still a political issue, and we still have men and women on the ground there.
It's still a political issue, but we still have people who died there under false pretenses. We now know there were not the WMDs that the administration claimed was there. There was no